Senator Cynthia Lummis put her crypto regulation bill on GitHub. What could go wrong? Today on Metaversity, your first stop for everything in the new frontier of metaverse and everything blockchain. I'm Chris and Kristen, and we'll explore and learn this new world together. So I thought we'd kick it off last week. Cynthia Lummis, who is a senator, put her crypto regulation bill on GitHub, and she's not typically been known to be very crypto friendly. So, but I have to hand it to her. I'm not sure GitHub's the best place for it, but it's probably a good place to put something if you want people who are maybe a little more tech savvy to kind of take a look and, you know, put their thoughts on it. So she did put it up there. Now, I don't know that it gave her the results she was looking for.
Right. Well, I mean, if you're right, if you're looking for a particular audience, it's good to go where that audience is. Is this image up here? This is her?
Yeah, that's her. I think before we started, you mentioned she might look a little bit like...
She looks like Martha Stewart.
Martha Stewart.
Yes.
I have to say, disagree. I think I like Martha Stewart better.
Okay.
But...
well, whatever.
But she did put it up there, and you know, if you're not as familiar with GitHub, and you're actually really familiar with GitHub, so you can correct me if I get anything here wrong, but you know, GitHub gives you typically it's used for coders, for going out looking for open source code and being able to add to that and create branches.
Yeah, you go find repositories of code, and you know, you can help expand on projects. Sometimes it's just a great repository, like a private repository too, for stuff you don't necessarily have to share on there.
Sure.
Yeah, and you know, we've become rather accustomed to it just being kind of, you know, this type of use, but I think it's definitely thinking out of the box for that senator, you know, going, okay, hey, I need some people that actually know some stuff about crypto. Where can I go where they already are?
Well, and you always hear all this stuff starts out with great intention. She's wanting to protect people, I'm sure, you know, putting it out there. But in the end, you know, kind of what sometimes happens is there's not as much knowledge, or the experts that they pull in to kind of help write these bills have sort of an agenda in mind. So, you know, the bills get written in a way that's maybe a little bit lopsided, you know, one way or the other, helping one segment of people over another segment of people, or it's very pro crypto or very anti crypto in a way. And so, you know, putting it out there might give people a chance to actually have some thoughts and maybe suggestions on, hey, I see what you're doing here as far as the regulation, but, you know, have you thought of this? Or is another way to do it that's a little bit different and not as stifling? Yeah.
I mean, so what kind of like feedback did she get?
Well, it's on GitHub, and she did have some good feedback. So one of the things that I saw, so it's not all bad. She did get trolled. She got trolled pretty bad, actually. But, you know, one person had a suggestion. I don't know if I agree with it, but it was like a legitimate suggestion that maybe there should be an increased value on proof of work cryptocurrencies with possibly a tax on mining. Now, I don't know that I agree with that, but that's an actual thought.
Right. Someone actually gave her genuine feedback. Okay.
Versus one of the comments was titled with just a bunch of eggplant emojis.
Oh, okay. Well,
and
I mean, you kind of have to expect that. It's the internet. Like you're going to get stuff.
You're going to get stuff. And the unfortunate part is I think she's trying to reach out. You know, that's the bad part about politics is it's very polarized. And here lately it's been very bipartisan, where either you're for or you're against, and it's very absolute. There's no in between. And I have to give her kudos in the sense that reaching out to the community who probably cares most about, or not most, but a community that probably cares about crypto and understands crypto a little bit for feedback. I think from a politician standpoint, she kind of took a step in the right direction.
Well, she's trying. I think that the thing is like politicians want regulation, And I don't think that the people who are into crypto want that regulation. And so you have that kind of innate conflict that comes from that clashing of desires. So, I mean, I get it now. So I understand like where the trolling comes from too, because it kind of comes from that place. Like fundamentally at its core, our beliefs are about, conflicting viewpoints.
Yes. And that's kind of tough for her. But it's kind of interesting. She took that, I guess, took that route to try to get something out there and let people kind of read it and possibly understand at least where her point of view is, and maybe where some different possibilities. Now, this is actually still super early. So it's not like this has a lot of legs. I don't know a lot about how bills get completely put through the system, but it's not made it to the floor. It's in the very early stages. There's other hoops that this would have to jump through before it even got there. But it was a unique way to get some opinions of some people prior to it getting there. I think a lot of times bills make it to the floor and for a vote, and that's the first time we hear about them, and you see it on the news, and then you're kind of like, what the heck,
Well, that's not true. I mean, I think we see tech giant leaders and their legal teams get hauled in front of committees all the time for exactly this purpose. They're looking for that feedback from people who know. This senator was trying something a little bit different and trying to get some feedback a different way from different people that, are still tech savvy and could provide something valuable to her.
Oh, sure. And I agree with that. They get, they have a Senate hearing or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess bills can sometimes come from the information gathered from that. So
I'm sure they do.
So you're absolutely got a point there. The bad part about when they do that and they get their information, when you watch like a Zuckerberg or someone get hauled in front of Congress for something like that, the bad part about that is I feel like a lot of times it feels a little bit like a witch hunt, and then I'm not sure how good the information is that actually comes out of it.
Well, for sure.
This approach seems like it might actually provide some feedback aside from the trolling that's going on that may be valuable for creating future policy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hope that people give it a chance. That's probably the more important part is like, if people can just I get it. You don't want regulation. She wants regulation. Like, I get that conflict, but like, there's got to be some meeting in the middle at some point. And, she's trying.
Right.
She's not just like out there going, I don't know how it works. It's magic. Cause I've heard that before.
Right. Well, and the other part to it is, she may believe it needs regulation for, maybe how much people can buy or who can buy or how it gets spent or how any of it works.
Potentially. I mean, in the end, like a lot of the regulation is like what they want the regulation for is for this current use, right? We've talked a lot about this, like crypto. It's currently this more of an investment opportunity and being used as that kind of vehicle. But that is not where ultimately the goal is for crypto to be, right? Like it's supposed to be a vehicle for another means.
Right.
Depends on the coin, eventually there will be this divergence or decoupling
from other traditional investments like stocks.
Exactly.
Where it kind of mirrors it now. So
yeah, I mean, when we see that, then things get very different. But I mean, I think I understand if you're going to treat it like an investment, it's going to be used like that right now. Then I understand why people like these politicians want to come up with those rules and regulations and things like that. Like I get it because they do that already with everything else. So like I understand where it's coming from. The problem is that we need it to decouple. We need to see these coins be used for, the right purpose, and then it the whole game changes at that point.
Right. Hopefully with the merge or something.
Yeah, and then you start to see DApps coming around or DApps or I don't know which way it is that you're supposed to say it. I keep saying DApps. But decentralized apps.
Yeah.
You know, which right now, I mean, let's face it, you can't really make a DApp right now. Like, you just can't.
Well, yeah, the
gas fees,
the gas
and
the transactions.
Yeah, it's just too much. Like, you know,
awful.
every time you're, you know, writing to disk or whatever, like that's something, you know. I mean, anytime you're doing anything, any motion, anything that happens in an app would be gas. And, you know, right now it's just outrageous.
It's
so
terrible.
It can't be. It has to come way down, which hopefully we'll see. But I haven't heard any news on that yet.
No. Well, I mean, Ethereum, it's always around the corner with their merge.
Yeah, for the last, I don't know, 6 years. Or
whatever. So also up on our wall, there's kind of a guy, I didn't think he was that creepy looking. And then below him was sort of there's a kind of like an app there that you can see on a phone. And what's going on there is, that is Jackson Awe, and he's with a company called Mighty Jacks.
Okay.
And Mighty Jacks makes toys and collectibles and those kinds of things for your favorite hero movies and comic books and all that other stuff. If you don't know who they are or you don't own any of their toys, they're kind of like another type of Funko Pop kind of thing.
Right.
Now what he did, and Mighty Jacks has been around since 2012, so they're not brand new. But back in 2018 was the first time that Jackson was introduced to blockchain. And I say blockchain because I don't know that he specifically understood at that time crypto or NFTs or anything, or what blockchain really represented at the time. It was very, in his mind, it was kind of confusing at the time, but he started to learn about it. And what he's done that's kind of cool is he created an app where there's an NFC or near frequency communication chip inside the collectibles.
Okay. This is feeling like some of those Spyro figurines that you play
a little
the
bit,
game.
Yeah.
Lego did some of that.
Mm-hmm.
You had like a little portal. You could place it on the portal and then it interacted with the game.
Wasn't that also called Horizons? I can't remember. Oh, I don't know.
I don't think so.
But there was a few of those games. There was like a Disney one too.
Yeah.
Where
I remember the Disney one.
Had those. But the purpose of his was it worked with the app to validate the toys that they're real. And so you're probably like, well, what's that have to do with blockchain? Well, then he stored what was essentially an NFT on the blockchain that went with that toy that was essentially a certificate of authenticity.
Okay.
For the toy. And it validated not only that it was an authentic toy, but you could also validate prior ownership. So why all that's kind of important for anybody who's a collectible owner or gets into collectibles, and Jackson actually talks about how this was a frustration for him too, is if you have something or you see something and you're like, oh, I've always wanted this, Wolverine figure or whatever it is, and you purchase it, or even before you purchase it, a lot of people kind of go to the internet community to try to validate it. They post pictures on a Facebook group or on a forum, and then they have all these people that aren't necessarily, they're other collectors, maybe not necessarily experts though, and they all look at it and they decide that in the authentic one, he has, his eyes look a little more like this or whatever the case is, but it's very frustrating. And in the end, you still kind of live in this world where you're unsure of how authentic this item is.
Okay.
So he wanted to create a way to make sure that you knew it was authentic before you spent your hard-earned money on something just to find it's counterfeit. Because a lot of the counterfeit stuff looks very real, or is, to just about anybody, there's no difference in some of that stuff. Especially when you're talking about, something that's kind of just a plastic figurine. It comes out of a mold, and sometimes I wonder if, the legitimate ones go out one door and the fake ones go out go out the back door. But it's a way for people to understand the value of the figure and the authenticity of it as well. But it also introduces another thing that oftentimes in the collectible world makes something valuable too. It's not just, oh, I have this figure or this toy and there's only 10 of them in the world, so it has value. But you may have one that's very common, but if it was owned by President Obama or Michael Jordan, that may also give that toy or collectible value.
Right. Being able to see the history of ownership. Yeah, I get that.
So, and then, if he's doing it with his figurines, but, we often hear about how people are unsure about how much NFTs are going to bring to this world. And we always think about it just tied to certain types of artwork. But this is another great use case to it. Imagine, I'm talking about little toy collectibles because, that's in my budget. But, people go out and buy $10,000, $100,000 guitars that, Paul McCartney played on or something. If there was a way to initially authenticate that and then apply an NFT to it. Right.
Well, and there's no chance once you have kind of that certificate backing things up, right? Like there's no chance really that you could lose it.
Right.
There's never a chance that you can't prove because that's always, it's there. It's on the blockchain.
Right.
It can be, easily proven. I like that idea. I like the idea of NFTs paired with real world things too. Not just collectibles, but like I imagine a world where, our entire, like buying a house, for example,
right.
And you have or a car and you have like a deed to your car and you have this like physical thing. Well, what if it was an NFT? And what if, because it was an NFT and it's digital, that, transferring ownership can become an easier process. It could be done faster. It could be, we were dealing with some house stuff not that long ago and, the bureaucracy of how all that paperwork kind of has to travel as it moves along the process. I mean, it takes weeks and there's really no reason for that, but it is how it is. And I think, one of the most exciting things about blockchain is how that a lot of those inefficient processes can be automated so that they just happen. They, it's handled intelligently. It's a part of, and there's no chance that it can get screwed up because it's been handled. Like you pull the human error element out of the equation. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, it goes back to the old way, of doing things. It just feels weird about doing it like for a house or a car because we've been trained that that's a process now.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't have to be. It can be so much better than it is.
I've got a thing and you've got a way to pay for it and we trade.
Right.
And that's kind of how simple it should be. And I just say a thing to pay for, a way to pay for it or a thing to pay for it because maybe that's fiat, maybe that's crypto, whatever it is. Maybe you've got 5 rocks and I'm willing to take that for whatever I have. But, that's how easy purchasing something should be for most items in this world.
Right. Well, and the more hurdles you put in place, the less likely it is that everyone can actually participate in that exchange. Right. I mean, that's kind of it's kind of at the core, really, of this idea is like accessibility. Like everyone should be equal. Everyone should have this opportunity to, engage in this thing, this activity of, buying and selling goods. Like it's not like, it's crazy to think that, we've set up the system that just puts up so many hurdles and barriers for folks that that keeps them from being able to do things like buy a house or whatever.
Well, and it's crazy. I think a lot of people go, oh, well, if I'm going to spend, I think the median house price now is over $400,000, which is totally ridiculous in its own. But let's say you're going to buy a $400,000 home and buying that house basically costs and closing costs, $20,000. and then selling that same home costs 20. I mean, when you add that up together, the purchase and the sell of that home ends up being, $20,000+. There's a whole industry just built around that process.
Well, and buying a home and selling a home, you have all of this paperwork, and all of that paperwork has to exist because of this inefficient bureaucracy that happens. And there's not just like one place all of that stuff has to go to. It's got to go to many destinations. Lots of different departments of this and departments of that,
Right. So you make sure you get your taxes and that kind of stuff. How hard would it be to have like a place where you just go, oh, I just bought this house and here's my NFT information. You just kind of plug it into a website somewhere and it just feels like it should just be able to go and send it out to all those places.
Yeah. It would automatically just be handled.
Right.
And that's what's so cool about it. I mean, we have lots of software that we use in our everyday lives and then in our work lives that's designed for exactly this purpose. Why are we not also like just chomping at the bit for something like blockchain technology to help us? Everybody should be excited about where we're headed with this because it's going to be so much better, but we just got to get there. And it, of course, getting there means we need people to understand the benefits of having this thing. Like, what can it do for you? Why should you care? Because honestly, it's not an easy process to be able to buy and sell things.
Right.
And it comes down to so much more than just like the money itself. Like, I get that. That's a huge part of it. We've talked a lot about like people being able to have a bank or not how they can't have a bank, and this will allow them to have that. And I keep hitting my mic because, virtual world. And I'm using my hands. But, like it goes so much further beyond that, really, in the end, is what I mean. Like, there's so many other benefits to it when you start using, like, technology's whole purpose, right, is to make our lives better. It's meant to make it
absolutely.
better.
And make these processes better. Like, the exciting stuff that we talk about is the headsets and the glasses.
Yeah,
and
the kitschy, cool, flashy, whatever,
hardware,
shiny
and
bits,
the cool things, and the new crypto wallet and all that stuff. But it's going to be the practical applications for this that's going to save people money, put everybody on equal playing field, and
it's
make the world a better place.
We're headed there. We're going to be there soon. We're going to be there soon, guys. So like, everybody needs to start really like understanding. Yeah.
Well, it's scary because, I was getting ready for today and I literally saw, I don't want to say who it was with just because I don't remember 100% if it was really them or not. But I saw an article that was like Web3, the thing that nobody asked for. You see articles all the time about stuff like that. And I just feel like those are written maybe a little out of fear because it is going to eliminate some of the old ways of doing things. And those are businesses wrapped around that.
Yeah.
But it's also got to be coming from a place of not understanding.
Well, I think that's where most of it. That's where, it's not understanding end sentence. Sometimes it's not understanding the benefit. Sometimes it's not understanding the technology or how it works, right? Like, this, I don't know, this fear, I guess, that people have, this unwillingness to just take a leap.
Yep.
Go learn a little bit about it before
do something different.
Like before you just completely shoot it down. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so much good that can come from this. I get it that the new stuff is scary, but the more you learn about it, the less scary it is, and the more you can understand like this vision of where we're headed. It's not bad. Like, there's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of
and there's
everyday things that people do that are going to be so much better just because of one simple piece of this equation.
Right.
Like one simple piece, which is how it's going to automate and make this stuff just work. Just, if you could just wave a magic wand and like shit would get done. That's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Holy crap. That's going to be awesome.
There it is. And it's going to be awesome. And make sure that when you hear the negative side, you understand what the negative is. because you and I read together the other day the article about the poor person that lost a bunch of money in a crypto scam. That happens just like it happens with fiat money and that kind of thing.
Well, the crypto's not to blame
but
on that.
You're right. The crypto's not to blame. It was, the purchase and what they were trying to do with the crypto.
Like the crypto wasn't hacked.
Right.
Like when you hear about this stuff, it
always
it's easy.
Sounds worse than it is.
Yeah, it's easy to get kind of like brought in by the glamorous headlines that have been made, right? Like, they're people are just trying to sensationalize the event so that they can get people reading or their blog posts or watching their YouTube videos or whatever it is, right?
Well, and people have been scamming and stealing money from people since there's been money.
Forever. Yes. Before money.
And before then, they were stealing
goats or whatever it
goats
was.
Or rocks or whatever it is
we were
that
bartering
you
at
had.
the time. Yeah. I mean,
so,
there's always crap like that. So you have to, I'm sure at some point we will figure out how to make that stop, but we haven't figured it out yet. But the problem isn't with the crypto, just like the problem isn't with like physical fiat money. Like they're the same, It's
a people problem.
It's a people problem. When you have people, you just introduce
that.
Well,
be careful because when the singularity happens, we won't have people anymore, and then the problem goes away.
Well, we'll see how close we are to that.
So.
Some days you read a good article and you're like, oh, this is it.
This is it.
Google's AI is here. Singularity has happened. I'm sure it's connected to the internet and we're all screwed.
It's asking for a lawyer. That was
maybe.
That was where that one ended. Supposedly, Google's AI was asking for a lawyer.
Like,
I think that one's a little bit.
I think it just got buried. Like that news just got buried with all the other crap going on right now.
I think I'm not sure that one was real. But it's pretty funny.
Well, Google's saying it's not.
Well, Google says it's not sentient. The engineer says it is, and then the engineer says it asked for a lawyer. Yeah. Which is pretty funny.
Well, and then Google's like, hey, this engineer is like, they've been fired and I'm going to do everything I can as a big, giant, powerful company to discredit that guy. Yeah, so I'm not sure where that lands in, reality. Is he good? Is he bad? Was he right? Was he wrong? I don't really know. But, it just, to me, you hear headlines like that and you're like, oh, yeah, it happened. Just like that. And that's how it's going to go down. I mean, we're not going to know. And then all of a sudden it's going to be a headline and that's the end of that.
That's the end of that.
Because, I think it's going to go fast when it happens.
Yep.
It'll be like Switch.
So speaking of tech, for kind of the tech update, we've talked a lot about the Apple headset. I was trying to turn to look at it. But
I'm looking at it now. I don't.
A little bit distant.
This isn't actually. Like, this is pretty laugh. I have no idea where you got this. Like,
I found a random kid and asked him to draw it for me. And
this is kind of that is exactly what it looks like.
So that's what I did. But I wanted a picture, so I put that up there.
Yeah. I'm fairly certain our kids could draw something better than that.
Probably
throw that out there.
I should have asked.
Yeah.
Instead of just going with what I found.
I don't know. I mean, I know you're going to put this link in the podcast, but yeah. Y'all, come on.
So
really,
it was a rough day
for the article writer. Yeah.
So Apple, I guess it's a couple things. A couple rumors have popped out that they're actually going to release. I think it's still a little not known as an AR, VR, XR, whatever their headset is. Probably VR.
I'm guessing. I don't know. Maybe we'll get lucky.
In January. So that's not that far away.
Yeah.
It kind of sounded like maybe
the expectation, right, is September is when we'll hear something.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe have a visual of it and maybe a demo.
I'm ready.
I'm
ready.
Tim Cook's not really dodging it anymore. I mean, there wasn't like everybody knew they were working on something, but they're, more officially when asked about it, he didn't like hide or dodge the question. It was more like, hey, just kind of wait and see what we announce in the coming days. So it's not like another continuing dodge of the question of when and what they're working on and all that other stuff. So that's promising. And then I actually heard today that it's even thought that their new Silicon M2 chip is going to be a part of that too. So that's kind of exciting. That's a lot of power to have in a headset.
It is. And I was reading something maybe last week or the week before that there was some breakthroughs happening. Oh, gosh, I'm going to have to go look and see if I can find the article, and you can include it in the podcast if I'm lucky enough to find it again. But, advancements in battery technology, this is a huge part of this equation.
Right.
It's not just about the technology of the screens or how the cameras will work to see your world or the processing on the device. It's also the battery. It's also the form fit of the actual like headset. Does it look ridiculous? Is it uncomfortable? Does it cause headaches? There's a lot of moving parts that kind of all have to work together in order for this to kind of, be the thing we know we want.
Right.
But to be the next device, to be the iPhone killer or whatever it is that you want to call it. Right.
Right. So. I'm guessing, the pro and con to that when I hear that is, so all the pros are, if you're an Apple lover, the M2 chip, is a combination CPU, GPU. It's multi-core, uses unified memory, which, Apple basically talks about how unified memory is memory that both the CPU and GPU can use, where sometimes the GPU is a little bit limited on the amount of memory. And so now if you have no idea what this headset's going to have from a memory standpoint, but let's say it's 8 gigabytes of memory, both the CPU and GPU have access to it. And if it's, 16 or 32, that's probably a lot more than they'll put in there. But whatever it is, it'll have the advantage of utilizing it. And then, like you said, the advancements, PC people and Apple people have fought for generations about how good stuff is and the problems with Apple versus PC. But I will say with the Apple technology, the M2 chip's supposed to be a lot more energy efficient. And what I mean by that is, the battery life is going to be much, much longer. I just kind of said it a weird way. So, instead of putting something on and have a limited amount of time with it, maybe you're going to get a couple hours or 3 hours or 4 hours even.
Well, I think it depends. Like one of the biggest questions in my head about when we see these devices hit the market is how much processing is actually happening on the device and how much is being offloaded to some wirelessly connected device, i.e. your phone.
Well,
right. Like, my expectation personally, and I really hope I'm wrong, that it's so much better than this. But my expectation is that at best, this is a heads-up display. And all it's doing is apps that are running on your phone are, sending data that's being displayed in this visual,
Well, I think that's where the positive of the M2 chip is. If it includes that, it's very possible that it's running the apps on its own.
It is. And maybe it'll be like the watches, right? Like, they run stuff all on their own too. They don't have to phone back to you.
Right.
I
only
your phone.
fear that devices that I've seen so far that have their new silicon chips are decently sized. Like their smallest one, I think, is an iPad. So I'm worried that you're going to have a headset and a cord. Yeah, that's my fear.
The iPhones don't have them two M1 chips.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think they're still on the A1 or A chips or whatever they're called.
Oh yeah, maybe they are.
But I know some of the iPads have them, and some of the, obviously when you get in the MacBooks and MacBook Pros and
right,
those have them. But
the Air and the Pros have them.
And I think if you get the
little
square, whatever that thing's called, those have them too.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though, like September can't get here fast enough.
I just want to know.
Not that I want to like wish away the days or anything, but like, no, I'm excited for when they give us some kind of glimpse of this. Like even if it's just like a still image or just another marketing hype video, like something, I want to see it.
Well, I want to see what Apple has. And then of course, Cambria too will be.
It's a different approach because they're basically a VR headset that has cameras intended for that pass-through experience. So.
But it'll be a lot of technology all at once. Like, if Apple's shooting for January and that rumor's coming out, you got to know Meta's got to be thinking we got to kind of get something there.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think that January for Apple was an attempt to have it by Christmas and they couldn't quite get there. So you're gonna have like
maybe you do
pre-orders
pre-orders.
open
Yeah.
in time, so you
Yeah.
can pre-order it and
Wait,
you know.
so I'm having this like remembering, just random thought. Can you buy the Google ones yet? The speech ones? Do you remember the ones that they just
I don't think
announced?
so. No,
Oh, okay.
not yet.
So, well, okay. So that's a third one though.
That's a third one that
Like-
may be around the corner.
Yeah. Crap. We need to make
So-
a lot more money so that we can buy all of these.
Or
Get sponsored.
I stopped saying that Zuckerberg's avatar looks like an alien, so hopefully he sends me a Cambria.
Yeah. Well,
And
then
and
you
we're
just said
we're
it again,
meeting
so
in his world that he built for
that's
us here.
true.
So,
Yeah.
so come on.
I think it'll be, it's going to be great. We're going to have 3 of them hit probably
can-
very, very closely together.
A
It's a lot of stuff to try.
lot of stuff to try.
Yeah.
So
On that note, subscribe,
subscribe, hit like, leave us some comments, tell your friends about us.
and we'll catch you on the next one.